can't hear what I'm saying. So I'm doing something a little different today where I went live on the podcast recording on YouTube because some of y'all are interested in seeing it that way while I'm getting prepared to record the podcast. So I haven't recorded it yet. I haven't set up, usually I set up everything and then go live, but I thought, well, I can launch on YouTube and then share on Facebook in the group. And if people want to hop over, they can. Today, so there was a lot of discussion, a couple things going on. One, I want to host a discussion with y'all, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do it, which is why I haven't done it yet. I think on Zoom about brainstorming ways to make money for those of you who are either suffering from less income or maybe lost your jobs, because it's, like we can sit around and do nothing, or we can help each other do something, right? So um that's something I want to do. I'm not sure the best way logistically to do that. So I don't know. If you have ideas, let me know. And then so that'll happen. I'll probably announce it by Wednesday. Once I figure out how to use Zoom, how to handle registrations, that sort of thing, and scheduling, because the thing is, there are different people with different schedules. So that's one thing. Today I am talking about, as I said, a side hustle approach to income, so we can, hopefully help people get off their sort of couches if they're on them. I know you guys probably aren't on your couches, and start making money. A lot of you were talking about well, okay, so I sort of make money on a side hustle, but now what do I do? And the answer is it's hard to know what to do, because we don't know how long this is going to go on. It's gone on longer than I thought it would to begin with. And here we are near the end of April, and it still hasn't. They're still restricting motion. Tomorrow, actually, I think today is our last day of having to shelter in place in Tennessee, unless the governor changes his mind today. And Sugar Creek Homestead says, I haven't lost my job. It's essential, but I really need to work from home. Are you working from home? Hopefully. And then, yeah, so it looks like you want to transition into a side hustle life. If our governor doesn't extend the shelter in place here in Tennessee, and we haven't had a lot, it's like we haven't had those alarming infection rates that you're seeing out of other places. So he may be like, okay, we can go back. If he lifts that, we're already starting to get back into normal life here. And then other places in the country we're not. So when you're starting a side hustle now, or if you have one, you need to think where are people, where are the opportunities that you can help with? Here, if we don't have to shelter in place anymore, well, then we're a little more free to move around. Well, meanwhile, in Oregon, they're not going anywhere. Michigan, holy cow. Michigan, what's up with that, by the way? Seeds aren't essential, but hair dye is. Okay. What kind of world does that governor live in? Very interesting perspective there. But yeah, they're really cracking down. And part of me wonders how much of this is just government officials like to crack down on stuff and testing how much they can crack down on. I'm not discounting illness. I'm not discounting death. I was actually told this weekend, by the way, that I will not be mourned as much as a country singer who just died. And in response to me, I posted the death in Tennessee from COVID. It's super low. And apparently whoever saw that read into it that I didn't take anything seriously. And it's not that I don't take illness seriously. I do. I'm prone to pneumonia, so I should take illness seriously. And went off on how I won't be mourned as much. And I'm like, well, thanks for pointing that out. I also won't be mourned as much as Princess Diana, but why are you saying that in response to the death rate? Why don't we look at this situation with data and figure out an appropriate response? and evaluate if the response we have now is appropriate. I wasn't even giving an opinion on if it was or wasn't. I was just like, well, this is an interesting thing to look at because, is it because we're sheltering in place that the death rate's been so low in Tennessee? Perhaps. This is episode 294, right? This is me. I'm also getting ready for the podcast in the background. So what I'm doing here is setting up all the files so that they save and I don't hate my life right afterwards and have to record this twice. The name of my podcast is Living Free in Tennessee. This is what I do every time. I set up the file and then I save it on my computer where I can find it because Macs are set up to save stuff in like system folders and then you can never find them again, which is one of the pain in the butt things about Mac computers, unless you get in there and change your settings. And then I've got the YouTube string, and Sugar Creek Homestead says, in public everyday need to work for my off-grid farm. Yep. Off-grid farms are fun. I actually, this weekend decided not to work except for on my taxes and got to do a whole bunch of like homesteady things. So I got cheddar cheese made because I'm going to do a cheddar cheese webinar at some point, and I needed to figure out the timing of how that works because when we do an hour webinar, like you need to put aside 6 hours of your day to make a cheddar cheese. That's what I was testing. And so then like, what do I need to show you about cheddar that's important? Do I need to have several cheeses in different phases if I'm going to do this webinar? Or can I do like in and out? Like I did with the feta, I timed it so you could see how cutting the curd works on the introduction to cheese making, which also covered feta. And I'll probably do a feta specific one at some point. I'm just going to do different kinds of cheeses from here. But I really wanted to show the curd cutting because once you figure out how to do that, you don't have to buy a curd cutter. You can just go for it. Long knife, done. Long thing that cuts. It doesn't even have to be a sharp knife. So this weekend, I get all done and then I'm like, well, crap. There's another gallon of milk in here. I knew I had another gallon. I couldn't find it because my fridge is full of chickens that I'm going to bone and then I'm going to grind the meat for the workshop and freeze it again. And I was defrosting them in the fridge. And behind the chickens was this 1 gallon of milk. And I found that after making the cheddar and I had my whey put aside and it was like yesterday and it's Easter yesterday. So we had Easter dinner here. So the kitchen had been in use all day. And I'm like, oh, God, this milk's going to get old. And if this milk gets old, so I had to make more cheese. So I decided to do a mozzarella. So like this weekend, I made mozzarella, I made cheddar, and with the whey, I made ricotta. So I think we're going to do a lasagna this week. That's my conclusion from all that. And the trick is like, I have lasagna noodles that are just normal, like, not the ones you have to pre-boil, but you can bake them in the lasagna. Those things are great, but I'm keto, so I shouldn't be eating those. So I'm like debating with myself if I just flip and eat some lasagna this week or if I find a substitute, but I don't have like summer squash to substitute. I have butternut squash or something. Like if I do a lasagna, it's going to be more like a lasagna casserole if it's keto. And even with that, like adding squash adds carbs. So I'm debating with myself what to do. I don't have big enough kale leaves yet. I could use plantain, maybe. I don't know. Do you guys have any ideas for that? We'll figure it out. I'll probably talk about it on video. But it's been kind of fun, all this cheese making, and I'm discovering a new love. Okay, so here's what I got going on. I've got y'all up. I've got the podcast thing ready for me to hit record. I've got my show notes. That means I'm ready to record. So what do you think? Should I just jump into this puppy at this point? The side hustle approach to income. Are we ready? Yes. The side hustle discussion, like how to earn money. We're going to do groups of 8 people on these calls and brainstorm. As I said, I need to figure out how to get Calendly to talk to Zoom to schedule them in a way that doesn't also make it so I can't get my work done. So I'm going to get that rolled out. I'm not sure. First, I need to roll out the webinar for Thursday because I decided to just suck it up and buy a Zoom Pro account so that everything automatically happens and you automatically get the email when you sign up for a webinar. I thought that'd be kind of cool because I end up manually doing all that. Anyway, I think it is time to record this podcast. So I'm going to hit record. You ready? Ready. Well, welcome everyone to Living Free in Tennessee. Today is Monday, April. I don't know. It's like the 13th or 14th, and I should have looked up the date before recording this podcast. So now I'm going to stop the recording and go look at my calendar. This is what happens when I don't. Bah. See, you guys get to see all my mistakes. Hold on. Ba 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 ba. Forgot that important step of knowing what today is. I don't know what today is. It's the 13th. All right. I don't have to look it up. I'm going to, gosh. Sometimes I say bad words when I do that, guys. That didn't happen this time. Welcome, everyone, to Living Free in Tennessee, where we talk about building the life you want to live on your terms. Today is Monday, August 13th, 2020. This is episode 294 of Living Free in Tennessee. I'm really happy that Trekkie Gal was able to let me know what today's date is. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, well, you haven't noticed that we live stream the recording of this podcast on YouTube. So I've started live streaming this podcast on YouTube. And today I decided I'd let everybody see like the entire how I get all my tech set up. And of course, I started recording, didn't know what day it was, had to restart it. On YouTube, if I make a mistake, you see me make a mistake, you see me edit the mistake. If you're interested in that, I have put the link to the YouTube channel in the show notes. And just go over there, subscribe to the channel. It will let you know when I'm live. I'm trying to do a better job of getting that out on our social platforms as well. Okay, so today, at your request, I'm going to talk through a practical approach to building side hustle income into your life. Okay? And this is because some of you are like suddenly without a paycheck. Others are working your butts off. I get it. Some of you are without a paycheck and you're looking around going, well, maybe I better earn money a different way. So this is meant to help you get into the right frame of mind as you build revenue streams rather than sending you off to go like in 14,000 different directions while you try everything and then nothing works, because that's not the way to approach this. Right now, there are tons of opportunities. And even if it's just taking a temporary job at a grocery store, restocking or sterilizing or any of the other things they need done, there's lots of opportunity. They are paying you more at grocery stores to work there than they usually do. And so I don't want you to feel hopeless about income if you have lost your job. That's why our community exists, right? We can help you come up with ideas. Along that lines, I'm going to start rolling out a series of Zoom meetings. So this is where we can see each other and talk to each other and interact with each other. You need to do this over your computer or phone, best on a stable internet connection. And the intention of these is to help each other brainstorm how to build revenue streams right now with this situation right here. I have not figured out the logistics of scheduling them. I will get that figured out by tomorrow at the end of the day and start rolling it out. I'm going to limit the call size to 8 people, and then we're just going to have a facilitated discussion, brainstorming session with each other about ways to build income. So if you're interested in that, make sure that you are signed up for my email list. That's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. Click sign up. And you don't, there's 2 kinds of email. One where you get a podcast notification 3 times a week, along with anything that's going on. And then there's also like overall news, which is usually a monthly or every other month email about what's new. You'll want to be signed up for the what's new one, the monthly or every other month. You do not have to sign up for the every podcast one. Although if you do, when I have extra little tidbits, I do include it in that email. Anyway, that's over at livingfreeintennessee.com. So today's show is really motivated by the failure of the government to bail us out. They're talking about bailouts. They're debating about bailouts. They're deciding which ethnic group, income level, special interests sort of payback needs to happen in order for us to bail out the people most in need. And of course, the ones who suffer under that most often are the ones who can least afford to not be bailed out. It's kind of pathetic watching this go down. I'm disgusted by it. I've had to stop watching the news. And the latest round of grandstanding and stalemates is an indication that while there may be some stimulus money coming your way or my way, it's not going to be all they say. It's not going to be all they say it is, and it's probably going to cost us more than it brings. And I mean, one would really like the stalemate going on right now is because of funding. Like the House has to approve the funding for what the Senate um, passes, and one would think that a Republican-led Senate could figure out how to get, some things going without additional funding needed. And in that way, the House is not in the way by, I don't know, deregulating things that keep you and me from creating something new and getting it to market and selling it. Cause like that whole process, A, costs money for business registration. B, there are so many things in the way for small food producers and small suppliers to get stuff just from them to you. Doesn't cost any money to roll back regulations, does it? Not really. Huh. Oh no, wait. They're politicians. Politicians don't have our best interests at heart. I forgot. It's all about the payback. So, I thought, "Hey, let's have a show about side hustles because side hustles are kind of cool. They help you start in a small enough way that you're under the radar. And some states have things in place to protect you so you can get started without all of the, go big or go home sort of regulatory environments that are out there. And now's a good time to do it if you're at home with, furloughed or wondering how to earn money. So, today, it's just the initial step, right, of forming a side hustle, figuring out that the more we get out there, the more of us who do this, by the way, if we're out there in force, it's harder to regulate us when they realize that the horse is out of the gate. And it's really interesting to watch the current shutdown and the help that's coming to people most in need is coming from people who have side hustles. Isn't that like Shipped and all of those things? These are people who don't want to have, a predictable full-time scheduled job sort of thing, or maybe some of them do, but they're out there doing their best to fulfill a need when they want to and how they want to. And I think that's great. So why not start your side hustle now? That's what today's show is about. Okay, if you want to email me, you can do it. Send me comments, questions, feedback, Nicole, Nicole at livingfreeintennessee.com, or go to livingfreeintennessee.com, click on contact, fill out the form. It comes to me. With that, it's time for our regular Monday segments. First one is Tales from the Prepper Pantry. And yesterday was Easter. And usually at Easter, I have people over if I can, and we cook something cool. One year, I even did a crawdad boil, which is totally what inspired the crawdad boil for the Living Free in Tennessee Spring Workshop that we're doing this year, I hope, if I can get crawdads in June. But we didn't really have a big event this year. So we did it differently. So all of the neighbors in the holler have basically been here for a while, like 4 or 5 weeks now, without being out and about much in the real world, just sort of doing what we can, and we help each other out. And so we ended up with a really cool neighborly Easter dinner, and everybody kind of brought something to the table there. One of my neighbors had a ham in his freezer that I cooked, and I made deviled eggs, and I had to make homemade mayonnaise to do that. And I tried some new recipes. One of them failed miserably, and I should have known it when I read it. Like some people write, they write articles about how to do things, and it doesn't work. I'll talk about that next. And then I tried another recipe, and the homemade mayonnaise worked. So I made deviled eggs, and we had greens that we'd grown and found. One of my neighbors caught a fish, so we ended up having like trout, ham, greens, deviled eggs, and mashed sweet potatoes and gravy, all from either the Prepper Pantry or from people bringing things over. And it was almost like, it's almost normal around here again, where we're together with friends. And, another friend had left some blueberry wine here, and we had blueberry wine that she made. It was kind of a nice event. And, as we talk about pantry management, one of the things that's nice to have in your pantry are some of these little special things that you bring out from time to time. I talked about once how you want to eat the thing you most want to eat in your pantry. because then you get to eat your favorite thing from your pantry every day. I mean, within reason. It's, like chocolate every day is probably not going to help your health long term, but yesterday I kind of had secreted some stuff away and brought it out and put it on the table, and it made for a special event. I have bumped up the animal feed to a 3-month supply now. So we're cycling through loading from the back, taking from the front, a 3-month supply. We have storage set up at my next door neighbor's house. And then when he brings a bag over, that's when it's like, oh, we need to order another one of those bags. And I've done that just to make sure if supply chains get kind of funky, that we're not, wondering how we're going to feed the baby chicks when they're here. Cause that's happened to me several times where I raise meat birds. And then about halfway through raising them, because everybody else is raising them at the same time, there are supply issues for a couple weeks. And I'm left like, okay, well, I can't give them the official kind of food that they need to have. So now I got to make something up. So we've done that. We are doing pretty well with our on-site stores. We were going to have a meeting, I think, later tonight among the 3 neighbors who we operate like a family, and just talk about, do we see stores getting low in certain areas, and do we need to put an order in? Like, for example, cat litter. If I run out of cat litter, I can go outside with a shovel and put dirt in the litter box. Like, it's not that big a deal. But if you've ever had a cat use dirt instead of litter, it's not as good. It's just not as good. It's kind of stinky. So I would prefer not to run out of cat litter. So, I'll have that on the list. And if we're going to do one order for pickup, we thought, well, we'll do it with 3 households worth of order. So it's just one big pickup and not 3 of us in the store running around, coughing on stuff or whatever. So having that meeting today, and I'll probably give a report on that next time. A friend of mine reached out, and she has found a farmer that has sheep that they are processing this week. So she asked me if I wanted to go in on a lamb. I haven't had lamb meat around for like 2 years. So I'm super stoked about that. And meanwhile, I've been watching the meat stores in the freezer go down. So there's going to be a little space created, and then there's going to be a little space filled with some lamb meat, because apparently it's slaughter season. So, and this, of course, inspires us to cook the whole animal, which is kind of fun. I have made more stock in the last 3 months than I can use. I'm starting to now need to figure out how to use animal stock in many more ways than I ever have, because I have saved every bone around here to cook into bone broth, and then I can it, right? I've got, if somebody needs some and you're local, let me know, because I can totally share it with you. I'm about to go make another one. I'm going to take chickens and remove the bones and grind the meat for the workshop. And then I'm going to have like 20 chicken carcasses worth of bones to make into bone broth. So you can see how that turns into a lot more bone broth than a person usually uses. And when I make soup, half the time it's from a bone-in hunk of meat, so I don't need any broth. It makes its own broth. Anyway, I did say I'd talk to you about mayonnaise. So I've done an episode on mayonnaise, and I shared my mayonnaise recipe. But I kind of have been wanting to find a different one, because my mayonnaise recipe yields more mayonnaise than I use very quickly. And so I looked around on Sunday, and I thought, well, worst case scenario, I don't get a mayonnaise that works, and I make it into salad dressing, which totally happened. So I looked, and it was like labeled, I think the title was a fail-safe mayonnaise recipe. And the person like lists the ingredients, and it's, standard mayonnaise ingredients. You got egg, you've got lemon juice or vinegar, you've got oil, and then spices. That's what's in mayonnaise. And they basically, the first step is to mix the egg, the oil, and the spices all together. And, like some of the oil, and then add more of the oil, and it will turn into mayonnaise. And at the very end, you add the lemon juice. And anybody who's made mayonnaise is already looking at that like, is that going to work? I don't think that's going to work, because it is by beating the lemon juice. I might have said orange juice. I meant lemon juice or vinegar in with the egg, and then slowly drizzling in the oil that creates the emulsification that makes the mayonnaise go from liquid to more of a solid. Okay. But I'm like, hey, it says fail safe. Let's try it. So I tried it. And I know you're going to be shocked to hear this. It didn't work because the lemon was not mixed with the egg yolk in advance, which is how mayonnaise works. So it's like I'm pretty sure what it is that either somebody just like totally made up the recipe and doesn't understand how mayonnaise work to get like advertisements because it was a slick looking site, or it was machine written, like clearly not tested. So I made a really nice marketplace salad dressing. And the reason it was marketplace is that I was pouring a marketplace spice that Melissa White, who listens to the podcast and is just starting a spice business, um, I was pouring it into a mason jar for storage, and some of it spilled. And I thought, well, that's the flavor going in the, in the salad dressing because I'm not going to put it in the jar. So it ended up really good. And we have a creamy sort of salad dressing that's not, you have to shake it to use, and it's fine. I added a little more vinegar to it for a tart sweet balance. It worked great. So the second recipe I found was from Pioneer Woman, who is somebody who apparently actually tries her recipes before she talks about them. And it takes 1 egg and 1 egg yolk, 1 cup of oil, and 2 teaspoons of either vinegar or lemon juice. And you can squeeze fresh from a lemon juice or use that concentrate stuff. And then she adds mustard and salt and pepper and sugar. Okay, so the mustard, salt, and pepper, and sugar go in one category. You can basically flavor your mayonnaise with whatever you want. You want salt and pepper, definitely. I like mustard. I don't add sugar to my mayonnaise because I don't need that like sweet commercial flavor. And what you do is you take 1 egg and separate the yolk and put that in. And then you put an egg with everything. And then you take any of the spices you're going to add, whether it be garlic powder, mustard powder, actual mustard, a teaspoon or 2 of that, pepper, salt, like all of that goes in. And like she puts a half teaspoon of salt and a half teaspoon of pepper, I'm pretty sure. But if not, that's what I put. And you put that in the blender and you turn the blender on for about 30 seconds while that all mixes together. And then you take your cup of oil. It can be olive oil, avocado oil, any oil you want, and you drizzle it slowly in. It should take about another 60 to 90 seconds to do that. And while what happens is that whips it up and it emulsifies it and turns it into mayonnaise. Then you take that out of your blender and you put it in whatever storage container you're going to use, cap it, leave it at room temperature for 45 minutes before you put it in the fridge. Why? Because the acid will kill any nasties in there that might have come from the egg, which is raw. And and then you put it in the fridge and then everything slows down and it all works out. Okay. That recipe worked great. As I said, Pioneer Woman adds sugar to hers and some other stuff. What I got was about a half pint jar of mayonnaise out of that recipe, which is exactly how much I need instead of a full pint jar, which my recipe does. So if you've been looking at making mayonnaise or you're stuck at home and want to try something new, that's how you make mayonnaise. That's my latest recipe. I'm going to update it. I'm probably going to play with it a little bit. A word on oil. If you use olive oil, your mayonnaise will taste like olive oil. If you use avocado oil, it's a little bit more neutral, but it might taste a little bit like avocado oil. So when you choose your oil for this, decide what kind of flavors you're up for. I've heard people using bacon grease, which I haven't tried. I'm not sure how you drizzle that in unless you melt it first, but I'm totally going to play with that. Or I might mix it with oil. Who knows? Anyway, that's Tales from the Prepper Pantry. Next up, what's in season? There is so much in season right now. I can't list it all, but some things of note. The Dryad's saddle mushroom did another bloom for me across the creek this week. So I've been getting a mushroom of some sort about once a week. It's just different kinds every week. So those are in right now. And I kind of expect after our latest round of cold and rain that we might get a second bloom of morels. I'm hoping. I'm going to go look at my patch now that I know where they grow. Vetch, the hairy vetch, is ready to bloom soon. And it comes out with a nice purple flower that you can eat and it looks pretty on salads. Dandelion flowers are everywhere. I need to go harvest them before I mow. And you know what else is in season? Bee swarms. Bee swarms are in season. Mine have swarmed once. I'm hoping to divide my other hive so it doesn't swarm. And that also means it's time to look at the honey. So I have some beekeeper friends that have already robbed for the spring. But I might have honey for sale soon because the bees make lots of honey at this time of year. Yeah, Turkey Gal. I just paused my recording, guys, who are watching the live chat. I've heard immersion blenders make great mayonnaise, and it's a lot easier and no need to drizzle it in. I haven't tried yet, but I will try that next time. What Turkey Gal is saying is you put it all in there together and go. My cousin was all excited about that too, and she's like, "It's a keto one," and I'm like, "Well, my recipe's not keto. I didn't add the sugar." But anyway, I'm going to get back to recording. I just finished watching the season. Next up, Operation Independence. This is where we talk about building local revenue and stability into our lives. You know something? I don't know about you, but I spent a lot less on gasoline this month than I usually do. So that means a little bit more money to go other places. Unfortunately, I've spent a bit more on delivery, so it's all equaling out. I am almost done with something that I'm never almost done with at this time of year. That's my 2019 taxes. Yeah, I spent most of my weekend in between projects working on tax prep, which for me means coding expenses from different accounts. And I'm down to the final countdown. That's totally where we're at right now. And I'll be jumping into that after my walk after the podcast is recorded under the hopes of getting this off my plate. And I know that the deadline's been extended and I don't have to, but I figured while I have momentum, I might as well get them filed and done. It's ahead of schedule. Usually I go till the last minute. I still have 18s. These are my 2019s. So once my 2019s are done, I'm going to do my 2018s too. And, they owe me money, so they won't be too mad at me for 2018. But it's kind of nice to be ahead of schedule. The big thing I've learned going through and consolidating my businesses differently in 2020, next year it's going to be easy because I only have one business credit card to really look at. I do have a couple. So I have 3 businesses. The other 2 businesses only have one bank account each, and then I'm done. Formerly, I have had like little buckets of money in a million different accounts. Weird to manage, so I'd have to transfer from one to the other, right, to make sure everything was covered. And it just became a tracking nightmare, and it's part of why. So I really simplified this year. And after getting my 2019s done, which is my last time having to do like the dance I'm doing on tax preparation, next year's going to be so much easier. Plus, I'm doing my finance Friday at least every other Friday to make sure I keep up on that stuff and don't just have like 12 months of stuff to do all at once. So you may wonder why that's under Operation Independence, because if you do your best to reduce the amount of money that you have to pay out in taxes and fees, you have more money in your pocket. The way you do that is keeping good track of miles that you drive and all of the other expenses you have, especially if you work for yourself. If you don't do that, you're just giving money to the government, and then you see how they spend it, right? They're not spending it on the stuff you want. They're spending it on the stuff they want. I don't need to support that. Okay, next up we have the second thing on next up was not the right transition. You guys are seeing all my mistakes today. Ba-ba-ba. And then I have to listen. See, then I just splice. So here's the deal. If you ever want to do your own podcast, learn how to edit audio on the fly or do segments that you splice together. Don't just do one big long recording for 3 hours and then go back and edit things out, because it take you so much time. So when I hear myself saying something, I'm like, well, that was stupid. I do go back in and I'm going to edit, track, split regions, and I like put a marker where I said what I didn't want to say. I'm deleting it. While I'm here, I'll hit save on the file so I don't have a really bad day. And then I'll redo the transition. Next up is a transition I used to go from segment to segment. I had one more thing to say under Operation Independence, so that was the wrong transition. The other thing I did early on in the podcast, in case you're interested, is I wrote transition words up on my wall because I used to say so, So every time I wanted to go from one thing to the next, and I figured out that that's boring. And I went back and started listening to other podcasters and started writing down transition words. So next up is one I stole probably from Jack Spirko. I don't even know. But also, why do I myself like that? Right? Okay. So I was just talking about. Oh yeah, I went off on I'm off on government tangents today. Sorry about that. My next thing is coming. The other thing we're doing is getting ready to run 50 meat birds. A friend of mine reached out and he was putting in an order for baby chicks. That's actually Mark Alexander at School Bell Farm, who sells meat for a living or for part of his living. And he said, if I add 50 birds to my order, the per bird price drops by 49 cents. Nicole, do you want birds? And I had been thinking of doing 25 and I was like, screw it, I'll do 50 because I'm sure this, if I have more birds than like the 3 families here need, we can totally sell them. And here's the cool thing about Tennessee's cottage. I don't even have to do it like under the table. Under 3,000 birds, you can sell them directly to people. You just have to hand them over frozen. So, you know, that's kind of in my favor if we decide to sell those, speaking of side hustles. And so we're preparing for that. We had a discussion today about we're going to run them over at base camp because there's too much going on here already. And I don't want a bunch of meat birds underfoot for the workshop in June, and they'll still be there. So we're setting up the brooder in the basement in base camp, and then they'll transition into a mobile chicken house with a run that is not roofed. I think the idea is close them in at night in the chicken house and let them out and then move that around so that they can be pastured. So that's happening. And I'm kind of stoked about that because every time I've run the number on meat birds when you raise them yourself, if you do it right, and if you make sure you get them out onto the grass and getting all those yummy bugs, it's way cheaper than paying your friend $4 or $5 a pound for chicken, which is about what a pasture raised bird goes for. And the meat quality is as good as other farmers in the area. So I'm kind of looking forward to spending a little bit less on my meat birds while also getting the benefit of having good chicken. And this time I will not make the mistake of freezing them before they've gone through rigor, which I totally did on my last. I had 30 birds come in last fall, and that's why I'm grinding them for taco meat, because they're like, if you just grill these birds, unless you cook them a really long time, it's like chewing on nails, and it's like chicken flavored nails, which is kind of good, but kind of not what you're looking for when you have chicken. With that, it's time for the main topic of today's show, a side hustle approach to income. And, way back when I was running a fairly large nonprofit, I well, I needed an outlet. And so I started doing some other things on the side and I made a little money on that. And because I did that, it set the foundation for financial stability in the sense that when you're paid like an employee, you get paid your gross income. It goes from your employer through a reporting system, reduced because you pay the government taxes and Social Security and all that. Then it comes to you, and then you pay your expenses for the month, right? When you work for yourself, what happens is you earn the money, you take out your expenses, then you pay the taxes to the government, and then the rest comes to you. Now, that doesn't mean you take out all your expenses, like clothing, shopping, no. But when you redefine the order of those things, you keep more of your money if you're doing it right. And so, for that reason alone, having at least one side hustle, if you're a W-2 worker, is a really great idea. And my recording just stopped, and I have no idea where. Why did you stop? I'm so glad I didn't go through this whole thing. Holy cow. It's because of this keyboard. I hit it with my elbow. I'm taking my stupid racking. I thought that was a pretty good kickoff, wasn't it? I think I just totally lost the whole flipping thing. I don't even know where it is. Holy cow. That's so irritating. Isn't this fun to watch? Watch Nicole get frustrated. Okay. I started doing other things on the side. Did I even explain? Yeah. I have to explain the whole tax thing again. Do you know how boring taxes are? Okay, let's see. I didn't swear at my jacket. I actually really like this fleece, but it was getting a little warm in here. Let's see, track. So now I go back and I edit. Oh, and I apparently I blow out my mic by yelling into it. Split regions at playhead. Okay, we're gonna go back into the podcast. And I made a little money doing it. And so, the reason you want to have a side hustle is you redefine your income. It can lead towards better financial stability. And here's why. If you're a W-2 income earner, here's how it happens. Money you earn, like gross money is earned. Your employer does a report, removes taxes, so Social Security, Medicaid, insurance, all that stuff, income tax, and then you get an amount of money and then you pay your expenses. When you have a business, you flip that on its head. And what you end up having is money comes in, you take out your expenses, then you pay your taxes, and then you earn the rest as income. And that doesn't mean every expense is an expense. Like dyeing your hair dye is not an expense, or clothes or that sort of things are not an expense. But if you're doing it right, you'll take out any expense you can to reduce the amount of income you have, to reduce the amount of taxes you pay, and you keep more of your money in your pocket. When you keep more of your money in your pocket, you have more money to put into savings, more money to pay off debt, all of those things. And the key to this is keeping up on your tracking when you get into that. If you are a W-2 employee, having at least one side hustle is a great idea because that opens you up for redefining how your income happens. And that sets the foundation for success later, even if you're not quite there yet. Well, okay, let's fast forward to now. We're in the middle of a shutdown where some of us are not allowed to go to work. I've heard another wave of people got furloughed last week. BBQ, I know you did. And, everybody knows it's coming. I've got other friends who are like, yeah, I'm working about half the normal hours I normally would. And the next thing that's going to happen is I get furloughed, right? So we're having waves of people getting furloughed, which means no money coming in. Well, if you have a side hustle, this is like the perfect time to do more on your side hustle if you can. And if you don't have a side hustle and you just got furloughed, it's a great way to start thinking about, what can I launch? What can I do? And how can I turn that into some money coming in the door, right? So that it's not no money coming in the door or waiting for an unemployment claim to get put through. Like I know people who put in unemployment claims 3 weeks ago on the West Coast. Still not processed. You can't depend on that right now. You may eventually get it, but I don't know about you. My mortgage is due right now. And some mortgage companies are saying you can apply for assistance, but my mortgage company, they will delay, they will not pursue foreclosure. This is Bank of America, but they will still charge you late fees and they will still charge you interest. Okay, so then you might as well just pay your mortgage if you can, right? Okay, and that makes sense. But if you're there not able to pay your mortgage and they're hitting you with $50 or $100 late fees, okay, that's costing you even more. And then you have to pay everything back in one lump sum after you skip a couple. If you're out of work, how do you get that? It's just like, it's hard. Well, what you can do is start a side hustle. So I like to approach this in steps, right? There are some basic steps you take if you're just thinking about a side hustle or thinking about your current side hustles and how you can expand. The first step is take stock of what you have. The second step is take stock of what you can do. The third step is look at technological opportunities. This is a big one for this one. Fourth is look at market opportunities. Fifth is choose the easy and most fun ones. Go for the low-hanging fruit and systematize them. 6, run the numbers regularly. And then 7, Add one hustle at a time. That seventh one, and this is my basic 7-step plan for side hustles. I've talked about it in presentations in front of groups of people. I've talked about it on this podcast before. Number 7, right now, if your job has suddenly stopped, you actually probably have room to do 2 or 3. And I think about Brian Norton, who was on, and he's in Seattle, and they have been a hot spot for the coronavirus for a month or maybe a month and a half at this point. He's been killing it. He's been like, I will deliver coffee if you order this amount. I will pick up food and deliver it to your house. And here's how I'm sterilizing it. He keeps coming up with additional ideas of ways to tap into the gig economy. He is the master side hustle guy. And I think, if you watch what he does on Facebook, if you're not friends with him on Facebook, by the way, go make friends with him because you'll see what he's doing. You'll be like, oh, that's a great idea. Maybe I could do that here. Yeah. So he likes to grow vegetables, right? Well, okay, so he did extra starts. Now he has all these tomato plants when people want to start gardening and the big box stores are out. I've got some and I'll deliver them for free if you buy, 12 or whatever. Okay, so let's talk through these points. First, take stock of what you have. And not only that, what you love to do. Like, I've been making cheese like a crazy woman. I love making cheese. If I could turn making cheese into something I do a lot, I would totally do it. It's not one of those things that would become a job I hate because I hate making cheese, right? Um, so you want to look at assets and skills. Assets can be you have a car, you have a bike, you have land that you can grow food on, you have land that you can run chickens on, you have tools that you can use to make things like any of those tangible things that you have, and then skills that you have. I'm a presenter. That's a skill that I have. I can use that to build a side hustle. I can build websites. That helps me in that situation. Everybody has a different set of skills. And even if you don't think you have skills, man. You got skills. Remember that. So it can be anything, soap making, looking at some people are really good at evaluating real estate and real estate markets. Now there's something that's going to be a hot kind of a little commodity when this comes out of the whole downward spiral we're in right now. Crafting. What crafting things do you do? Roasting coffee. That's one that I had that I looked at and I was like, maybe I'll build that. Canning food. Do you know how many people want to learn how to can food right now? It's nuts. Baking, cooking. Somebody in my local community launched a YouTube channel that's it's called, was it Quarantine Kitchen? Brilliant idea. Fixing cars. Maybe you're one of those people who likes to retrofit cars so they're like ooh, cars, making go-karts, growing vegetables, cleaning. You can clean a house for money. You might not be able to clean it right now, but if that's something you're good at, something you want to turn into a side hustle, set the foundation for it. Start talking about how you're going to do it as soon as as soon as that's considered a vital service again, right? You can start getting customers right now for some of these things that you quote unquote can't do in your community just by talking about it. A friend of mine, mobile pet grooming. She's a mobile pet groomer. She's always really busy. Her phone's been just like ringing off the hook. If you are into pet grooming and you're not mobile, you can become mobile right now and you can get customers right now who are desperate to have their animals groomed and don't want to get exposed to the nasty. And then you have them and then they're going to be like, well, this is way easier than dragging, Sam, my dog, to the groomer every time. Forget it. I'm just going to keep this going. Now is the time for mobile pet groomers. And the trick there is there's a licensing thing for pet grooming. And I think in most states, if not all of them, but if you're already a pet groomer, you can do it. And if you're not, you can start talking about how you're going to do it, right? You can start laying that foundation and figure it out. Appliance repair is big. That's another one. A friend of mine was talking to me. I was like, how's your income going? And he's like, I have more appliance repair contracts than I've had in a long time. People are not buying new appliances. They're repairing them when they break. Used fridges are hard to come by. The other thing is they're not replacing them with other used things because people are buying used fridges and freezers to store food right now. So appliance repair. Who knew? Another idea, and this is good. And this is one I've been thinking about doing a series on my Hollow Roast YouTube. Transitioning your business from storefront to mail order. So one of the unique views I have, one of the skills I have is I know exactly how to ship coffee in small amounts, right? I know how to set up the system on the website. I know how to get better rates from the USPS. I have an idea of what programs that UPS and FedEx have. I've got some knowledge on package sizes and packaging ideas. And I have an idea of how to build that into your prices versus adding shipping, how much time it takes to pack that stuff. So for me, I could become a transitioning to mail order business consultant right now. That's a skill I have. So, and that's all motivated by a need, right? So I've been thinking about doing a YouTube series just for other coffee roasters who are struggling because their business was a storefront where they made specialty espresso drinks. And oh, by the way, we roast coffee too. To crap, we can't let anybody in the store. In fact, takeout's been cut off. And all I've got is the coffee roasting, and now I got to get it to the people and they can pick it up. But if I could mail it all over the country where people are stuck at home making their own coffee, I would be better. I've had lots of questions from other roasters about how do you ship this amount of coffee or that amount of coffee to all these different places in the country. So, I mean, there's an idea. See how this happens with side hustles, guys? So you take stock of what you have. If you are an avid gardener and you save seeds, do you know what you have right now? Seeds. Do you know what happened in Michigan? The idiot governor declared seeds as non-essential, and you are not allowed to buy seeds. Do you know what else is happening in Michigan right now? People want to plant their gardens to grow their own food because they're a little afraid of supply chain disruptions in the next few months. And if you're growing your tomatoes, you don't have to buy them. Well, if you've got seeds and you've got a way to reach people in Michigan, you know what you can do? Wait for it. You can sell them seeds. Mail order. Done. Same with plants. In your area, if people are looking for plants and you have plants, you can sell them plants for their garden, right? I have a friend who, Dory, 40 acres in a cave. When we went and looked at her property for value, finding value out of it, they had these old bed frames with springs. Like, they'd have a bed spring and a mattress on top. We looked on Etsy. Those things sell for like $11 per spring. So every bed has like, I don't know, 50, 100 springs times $10. That's worth salvaging. So take stock of what you have. Your car is your tool to become an Uber Eats deliverer or a Shipt deliverer, which is the grocery store one, right? You have stuff. Even if you don't think you have stuff, you have stuff. A bicycle can help you deliver. There's tons of things in your life that you don't even realize are an asset, if you just look at them and figure out how it fills a need. Okay, so second step is take stock of what you can do and be real about it. And this is my cautionary tale. Don't start 10 side hustles at one time, even if you're unemployed. Don't do it. What happens when you do that? Do you know what happens when you do that? I know what happens when you do that. You don't get anything done. And in order to be successful in your side hustle, you need to be able to complete things for your customers. Be really real about what you can do. Take stock of what you can do. Value your time. Estimate the time and resources you need to deliver on your promises. So first, right, you're looking at what you have and what skills and assets you have. Second, you're taking stock of what you can do. A friend of mine years ago, around Thanksgiving, about 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, she would post on a bulletin board at the grocery store, homemade pumpkin pie, $10. Okay. And she knew that she could make 6 pumpkin pies in a batch. She could do 3 batches of those. She needed 1 pumpkin pie. And so she had that many seats available in her homemade pumpkin pie side hustle. And then people would call her and sign up until she was sold out. And in this way, she A, made money for making pumpkin pies, which she likes to do anyway. And B, she got her pumpkin pie for free. because they basically bought her materials. And I always took that story and I was like, well, A, you're really smart for doing that. And B, like she knew her parameters, she knew how much she was going to charge, and she was doing something she liked with time that she already had set aside for that. So for no like very little extra effort, she was able to make a little bit of money and pay for her pumpkin pie. If you look at what happened last week at Living Free in Tennessee, I launched my first cheese making webinar. Yep. We did introduction to cheese making and people liked it. I talked about the basics of cheese making and showed them how to make a feta in a 1-hour class. Well, now I've got people asking me for cheese making classes because ancillary to that, I've started posting pictures of the cheese that I'm making because I ended up with a lot of milk. And I thought, well, heck, I like cheese. I'm going to be, working on cheese making class. And, okay, so take this into a skill you have. Do you fix lawnmowers? When your lawnmower fixed, start showing what you're doing to fix your lawnmower. Suddenly people want you to fix their lawnmowers, right? Fixing lawnmowers is huge. If you can find somebody who can fix your lawnmower for like 25 or $50, I'll totally pay for that. I hate fixing my lawnmower. I don't know how. I should totally learn how. I don't know how, right? Think about that. If you've got that skill already because you've been maintaining your yard equipment, you've got a skill you can sell. Or maybe you're just really organized and you can do from home clerical work. I would have loved to pay somebody this weekend to do all of my coding. An idea we're getting from the YouTube live stream right now from Crystal is I work on houseplants over the internet, still learning how to propagate them. That's really cool. That's awesome. Okay, so step 1 was take stock of what you have. Step 2, take stock of what you can do. And if you have a full-time job, add one side hustle to start with. If you have no job all of a sudden, you can probably add 2 or 3 depending on what it is. 3, look at technological opportunities. The internet has changed our world. I have a friend who tapped into the Uber economy and bought a car because she realized, oh, you have to have a new car for Uber. I can make X amount on Uber. A car payment is half of that. And she got a new car, drove Uber for like 6 months or something and paid her car off. Done. And the reason that works, technology is supporting a direct transaction from person to person. So they go around the regulatory environment around cabs because taxi cabs are heavily regulated. And, fast forward to now, they're starting to try to regulate Uber more and more because they're putting taxi cabs out of business because wouldn't you rather take Uber as well? I mean, like you can see on your phone when they're going to get there. You know how much it's going to cost in advance. It's GPS tracked. So if something goes wrong, somebody has an idea where to find your body. Like it's all good stuff. Airbnb is a platform that allows me to rent a guest room or my guest cabin for a night at a time to people. It turns me into a quote unquote hotel. Same thing, circumnavigating that whole hotel cartel, right? Well, here's what they did. So about a year ago or a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, they launched Airbnb experiences. You could come stay at my homestead, pay me extra, and I take you on a wild edible plant tour, and then we have a meal together, and I can charge an extra $100 for that or whatever. Okay, so now everybody's stuck at home. Airbnb does not have people renting from people right now because people aren't going anywhere really. Airbnb launched digital experiences. So first I'm like, I wonder what kind of digital experiences people are thinking of. Maybe I should do cheese making classes there, right? Because I love making cheese and I want to show people how. So I go on there and there's like cookie making and just a tour through the woods or there's a lot of different kinds of ideas up there. And that's a technological thing. Like you can tap into the power of the internet and video streaming and do an experience and get paid for it. If you're home cooking cookies anyway, you might as well make $20 while you do it, right? The deal with that, though, I've noticed on the Airbnb experiences, they don't pay very much per seat. So I think what you want to try to do is get more than one seat per experience. I don't know. The most expensive one I saw was $20. And yeah, you might be able to make more than $20 just by promoting your lawn mowing service if you think about it. But there's, shipped Scribber, Hip Camp, all of these things. My mom coaches grad students like who are from other countries, so she take it, but have to put their PhD paper in English. They have to submit it in English. She, de-foreignizes the English and then helps with them with coaching and content, like it should be stronger here or less strong there. My mom's really good at that. Scribber, Scribbr, is a tool that can link you up with people who need that kind of help. So if you just like look out there, if you figure out your skill, go look, and you may find a technological opportunity. Okay, then the fourth thing is look for market opportunities in your area. I really love Tim Cook's story of how he launched his handyman business. I think it's awesome. He was like, I'm done with this job thing I have, and I want to build this handyman thing. And he did it. And now he's shared in a YouTube series how to build your own handyman business with very little money out of your pocket. Well, right now is a really good time to watch that series, guys. If that's something you can do, if you have tools, do it. Because people still need things fixed, and they're really going to need them fixed once they open things up again. So every market has something different. There's been a swell in farm to table, and you could totally do a backyard garden or micro CSA, right? There, Uber and Lyft were solving the problem of not enough cabs and them being too expensive. No decent hotels. That's Airbnb. If you have an awesome river nearby, you could do kayak rentals or become a fishing guide, right? Lack of self-defense courses, martial arts class, if that's your thing. If stores are out of meat, and this is the latest rumor, stores are going to run out of meat because meat producers are shutting down, and it might really happen. I don't know. I feel like half these rumors that get spread are just to make us go rush to the store and buy all that thing because they have too much of it. But if you're seeing that now, and I haven't really looked into that, I just saw a headline, by the way, so maybe it's true. If you're like me and you have some land and you see that stores might be out of meat in probably 3 months from now, if the farms are closing down or maybe a little sooner, you've got time to do meat birds. Right? You've got time to raise some meat, and then you can sell that rabbits. They happen fast. So if you see that need and you can fill it, you do. If you see that need and you know how to fill it, but you can't, you can't. A micro CSA though, man, with a crack key system, they were talking about this over on the Survival Podcast. You can build an indoor lettuce growing system and get people to subscribe to your lettuce done, and you get your own lettuce. It's kind of cool. For me, Airbnb was an obvious one to tap into because I live near a lake and near a river where there's great fishing and kayaking and boating activities. And I had a guest cabin, so I Airbnb'd it for a while. Then the regulatory world came in and started getting all up in my face, and I decided it would be a long-term rental. You cannot rent my cabin for less than a month now because then it's a long-term rental and I'm not subject to the same regulatory or tax environment that I would be if it's for less than 30 days. But you know what? That's also cool because there's no housing here. It's really hard to find rental houses in my county. So I just happen to be well poised for that. At some point, that will change. Coffee for delivery. I can do roasted coffee for delivery, and I've offered that to my community to a big net zero. Nobody wants it. You know why they don't want it? Almost everybody in my county, they drink crap coffee, and they pay crap prices for it at the crap store, and they think Starbucks from Walmart is good. It's not my target customer. I'm sorry. Somebody who really wants a fresh premium coffee, they can order from me. If they order in my county for 2 pounds or more, pretty much, I will deliver it for free because I'll be on my way. Once a week, I go get my milk from the farm. I can do it that day. Done. So, but if you're in a denser area and you have the ability to do this, I saw in Austin a company do coffee for delivery that's made. They come, they do the pour over for you. There's your coffee. They come, they do the espresso drink for you. There's your coffee. So if you are somebody who ran a coffee shop and you have the equipment and you have the ability to run the equipment on a trailer with a generator, say, you could totally do like high-end espresso drinks for people for like $15 a drink or whatever. Or if you can line up 20 of them in one neighborhood, a little bit less, like have people start making their little drink. Because that gives people a sense of normalcy right now. I get to have my latte. My latte, right? I know that's a stretch for a business idea, but that's the kind of thing you need to look at and then see if that's really a thing. And the way you see if that's a thing is you ask people if they want this at this price. And then if they do and you can do it, you go try it out. And then once you try it out, you decide if it's worth your time. And if it's not worth your time, you're like, "Meh, not doing that anymore." You raise your prices, right? That's not how that works. I have extra duck eggs right now, I think, and cilantro. I grew all this been like cilantro challenge for years. Totally have a ton of cilantro. I could totally sell that to my community if people wanted to buy it because it's there and it's easy. Okay. Fifth step is choose the easy and most fun ones to do and then systematize them. You need to have a system. Yesterday, I roasted all of my coffee orders for today except for one. And it was like the one that came in the middle of the night last night that I roasted this morning. Well, almost all of them. I had some extra roasting. And it was the scale of a day that I would have in December for the Christmas rush because I did all of my coffee of the month subscriptions, which I usually kind of time out throughout the month. But with this unpredictability of when people are ordering, I don't want to short shrift my ongoing supportive customers. So I've been kind of like banging out coffee of the month. And then if other people are ordering 6 and 10-pound orders, I can handle those. And it's not like, oh, I have to choose coffee of the month client or other client. I've just been getting them done. So that meant that I had 40 orders or so to get out in the mail today. And I set up a whole packing station and wrote all my handwritten notes because every order gets a handwritten note and had them all organized with the labels and then spent, I guess it took me an hour and a half or so, maybe 2 hours of packing. It took me 4 hours to get all of my orders, like A, finished roasting, B, all the notes written and everything sent. And if I didn't have a system, guys, that would have taken me 8 to 10 hours probably. It would have taken all day. It wouldn't have been worth doing probably. So when you find the easy, fun side hustles, you want to look at this. Okay, 1 at a time, this is what I do. 10 at a time, this is what I do. 20 at a time, okay, this is how I can systematize that, right? And today would have been a great day for me to outsource packing to my one local person who I can outsource that to. But, I just didn't for whatever reason. It can be anything from baking twice as much bread or that pie story, right? Subscription sales to buy your excess. If you're growing lettuce for yourself anyway, and you can easily grow too much, I would add that right now because people are going to start getting really into that. I think if you promote it right, you're going to have people all up in your face asking for it. A weekly garden broadcast. I don't know why people would not subscribe to that right now. So many people suddenly are much more interested in growing their food. I think that'd be a great one. I've added a couple of things. I have a series on YouTube that's Quarantined in the Holler, where I just talked about something I'm thinking about while we're quarantined here. And this one hasn't launched, but it's in the process of being edited, Cooking with Nicole. Because more people are cooking at home, and that's what I can give them, right? I also think a big hole that we have right now is home cooking meal planning services, like how to cook with what you have at home. Like if you're at home for the 4th week and your family tends to go out 2 or 3 times a week, which is not unusual, guys. It's not unusual. How do you plan breakfast, lunch, and dinner when it used to be like grab cereal, eat at school for your family, and then dinner at home or takeout? It's a whole different scale when you go from that series to I'm cooking breakfast, which can still be cereal. I'm giving them lunch and I'm giving them dinner every single day of the week. More now than ever, especially work moms and dads, really. People who are balancing 2 family incomes with kids are now like, I am totally screwed and don't know how to plan the meals. Launch a home cooking meal planning service for them. Find out what they like, find out what they have, find out what they can get or what they got at the store if the stores have scarcities, and then be like, this is breakfast, this is lunch, this is dinner. These are the recipes, these are the ingredients you need. Done. People would pay for that. I am sure people would pay for that right now. They're in week 4 on the West Coast, or 5 on the West Coast, I think now. Holy cow. Okay. 6, run your numbers regularly. This is the most important thing about your side hustle. You need to run the numbers and you need to include your labor. I did not used to include my labor. I was going to be working for negative money if I did not include my labor, right? So you just need to do it on a regular basis, and you're probably undercharging at first. And that's okay. Once you realize you're undercharging, you change the price. I used to sell a dozen eggs for $2. Now, if I were going to sell chickens eggs, it would be $4 to $6 because now I know what it costs to raise a chicken, and my duck eggs are $8, and friends get a discount. I used to do coaching calls for $75 a call because it's an hour. $75 an hour is pretty good, right? Except for the other, it takes me 4 to 6 hours to do an hour call, guys. The price had to go up. It just wasn't going to work at 75 at that point. And that's because I started tracking how much time it really took for me to do it. And when I realized that, I realized I can do one coaching call a day, and not on Monday, because this podcast is on Monday. This podcast takes a lot of time, right? So if I'm going to do coaching calls, one coaching call a day, the other 4 days of the week, because my other podcasts don't take as much time as this podcast takes, right? So that's why not only the numbers of what things cost, but you want to look at how much electricity am I using? How much of my time is it taking? Materials, of course. If you use propane, the propane, insurance, all of that stuff, start factoring it in there. And I know that takes time, but and for me, it's like the thing I like to do the least, which is why I'm doing my 2019 taxes all at once right now. But it's so worth it. Like, since I started being more disciplined about that, things have gotten way better for me, and it's a lot easier for me to say no or stick to my guns on prices for things, because people always want things for less, and I'll be like, this is the price it has to be. That's okay if you don't want it, but it's the price it has to be, Okay, and then 7, add one thing at a time and leave time for recreation, even if you have just lost your income suddenly. Okay, as I said, I give you permission to start more than one thing, but start 2 or 3. Max. I mean, if it's handyman business and cleaning business, those 2 things would go together, for example. Or if you're going to do a micro CSA plus a brownie business, great, that works. But don't do like eggs, handyman business, web development, cleaning service, and coaching calls all at one time from 0. Because if you do that, none of them will build. You really want to grow what you have before you add a bunch of new side hustles, and leave time for fun and friends. Because when you spend time with the fun and friends, A, it sells your product. It does. They start talking about it to their friends, and it's kind of cool. And B, you end up balanced so that you can analyze things better, right? One time I was in Smithville, and I was at my favorite coffee shop, which no longer exists. And the lady's like, I'm trying to sell this for 20 grand. And I was like, well, I could probably do that. I could borrow money, run a coffee shop. I like coffee. I like roasting coffee. I could move my roaster in here. It'd be awesome. So I called Chef Brett and I said, can you remind me why I don't want to buy a coffee shop in Smithville, Tennessee for $20,000? And he said the following. It's one of his famous quotes. If you want to lose $50,000 and never see your friends, buy that coffee shop, Nicole. And then I was like, oh yeah, I've seen his restaurant on Saturday morning after Sunday morning after Saturday night. I know what those bathrooms look like. I don't want to deal with that. And even in a coffee shop, you're going to get that same factor of people who are just abusive because it's not theirs, so they can be mean. And I didn't really want to be in the business of making coffee drinks. I just thought maybe I could have a new life in this coffee shop. Well, yeah, in a market where you have to convince people that a $3 cup of coffee is, not highway robbery. Nah, I don't feel like fighting that battle, right? That's why I distribute via mail to people who appreciate it. And so I didn't do it. And that was because I was adding one thing at a time, and that was an opportunity that came up, and I was like, I don't want to put my time there. It's not going to be, what I want to do. Or, you add bees to your homes. It's the same on the homestead. I added bees. You know what I did last week for like 8 hours? Bee swarms. Same swarm. I caught it once. It went back to the old hive. Caught it the second time, got it situated. Then I had to move the hive where I wanted it. I'm still going to move that hive to another farm way across the county for a week. And then I'm going to move it back where I actually want it to be finally, because where I want it is next to where the hive was. It came out of it. And if I put it right there, the bees will get confused unless I move them first. Everything you do has something like that. And you need to remember, even if you've done all the assessment, stuff like that's going to come up. Our friend BBQ, I believe his oven broke at home once, and he had to then go like bake all his brownies at the church, which is great that he had a church, but then he had to load everything into his car and then take everything out and unload it and bake all his brownies and load everything. And it added a ton of time, and he did it because he's going to make his business work, right? But man, that was a lot of time. Imagine if he'd done that and he had 5 other hustles. So just remember, add 1 or 2 things at a time and then do them well. And that's how you turn it into money. And I have a comment from online that I am going to say something about. I don't always do that when I'm recording this podcast because my audio listeners are wondering. But Dave Clark says, glad to see you're doing well and sharing help and humor with us. Yep, that's my goal. And if you guys need anything or want to hear about something, request it because I'm going to build your feedback into the podcast as much as possible because we need to see ourselves getting over this thing. So side hustles are a great way to begin building resilience into your budget if you have a job. And they are a great way to start building money back into your budget if you don't have income. They make you money. That's a good side hustle makes you money. It does not cost you money. And if you're out of work right now, start one that does not cost you a lot of money to get into. Go with what you have and push it, right? Just push it. You got time to push it right now. They integrate into your life without hurting your relationships. That's really, 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 really important. Ask me how I know. Ask me how I know. And you don't have to end up starting 10 and finishing none. You want to start a couple. You don't want to grow to depend on the money if you're doing it in addition. So starting a side hustle, it's a great way to redefine your budget, start having more income coming in. But if you start earning $500 more on your side hustle and you have a full-time job and you build that into your monthly budget and expand, you're ruining the whole point of a side hustle, which is either to replace your full-time job long-term or to make you a little better off. And so if you have a successful side hustle and a full-time job and you're keeping your full-time job, put that money aside so you don't depend on it. Anybody who's done that going into this stay-at-home thing who has lost their job, okay, now that's their full-time job, right? That's their income. But if they were saving it, they're in a much better place than if they had expanded. So remember that as you're building this, of course, if you're out of work and you're doing this for money, like you got to do what you got to do. When I lost my job or fired myself or however that happened, where I transitioned into the life I have now and went from having a really good income to no income, you can darn betcha that my $8 a dozen eggs was something that I used that money to buy duck feed. And I used the extra money to buy the gas for my car and that sort of thing. I didn't have a job though, right? If you do have a job, put it aside. And of course, when you're ready and they do become your full-time thing, like Holler Roast has started to do in my life, that was a side hustle for 5 years. And then it's still been like right now, it's about half my income. Okay. So it's still not full-time, and I'm being really careful to not pull money out of it, even though just because if I need to get a new roaster or something, I need to have money there. And that's something I've learned and grown with, and it's been kind of nice, right? But because of that, I'm better prepared for high volume like I did today. So side hustles are awesome. And what better time than now to start one? There is no better time to start one or assess how you can grow one if you want to do something that is going to be better launched after things open up again. Like a house cleaning business might be a little hard to launch right now. Although, again, I think you can get customers for stuff like that out of the chute. And like in Tennessee, as I said, I'm pretty sure a stay-at-home order ends tomorrow. I don't watch the news on this, guys, anymore because it's too depressing. I got to keep moving forward. Like we all got to keep moving forward. And it's not, I look at headlines about once a day and that's about it. So with that, I do want to remind you, we're doing a Zoom meeting announcement on Wednesday for doing 8 8-person Zoom groups for those of you who want to brainstorm your side hustle idea and start talking about ways to get it started. I don't want more than 8 people per call because I think when you get it too big, it becomes unwieldy. So on Wednesday, I will be talking on the podcast about that, and I will send out a way to register on it. The other thing is we are doing a how to start your spring 2020 garden workshop Thursday at noon. Registration for that is going to be up in the morning. I am setting it up a little differently than we have with the other webinars. Those are free for members. So just make sure you get your coupon code, log in, get your coupon code. I may make it so you can just log in and register as logged in. We'll see how that goes. It's all new technology for me, but that's Thursday at noon. Tactical Redneck will join me. We're going to do it together. We've got our outline together. The one we're doing after that is going to be more of the hydroponic, aquaponic growing concepts. So we're going to keep doing a webinar every week through April, and I may go into May. It depends on how long this thing lasts. Finally, I got a bad review on iTunes, and it's on the top. So if you have not reviewed this podcast, please go over to iTunes and drop in your review to push it down. I would love that. I never ask for reviews. I always forget I should. That does help raise the visibility of the podcast. And if you have time, do that. With that, guys, go out, make it a great week. Okay, so Dave, you have a question. Do not use HostGator. Do not use HostGator. Years ago, I was willing to work with HostGator because Jack recommended them. Do not use HostGator. Because they have changed. Bluehost and HostGator are the same company now, or they were last time I looked. Bad. Don't do it. Anyway, I do like getahostnow.com. That's run by somebody from the network who listens to TSP and has pretty reasonable hosting. I also use WP Engine for Hollow Roast. That's WPEngine.com. They're also great hosting just for WordPress. They don't include email. Hope that helps. Okay, guys, so I'm going to get this produced, get it out, and go for my walk. And then I forgot what I said, but I was going to do right after this, but there's something I'm going to do right after this that has something to do with something. Oh, taxes. Going to get my taxes done. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed it.